With all the advances in healthcare and nutrition, Americans' life expectancy is projected to rise to nearly 86 years old in the next 30 or so years.
Yeah, so your retirement could last 25 to 40 years, all of which takes more planning and savings to avoid outliving your assets. So it's also, we call on it to ensure we're really living through those years, living a life of joy.
Now, to discuss the latest trends and advice on how to achieve your best scenario, we're joined by Larry Sprung, founder of Midland Financial and author of Financial Planning Made Personal. Good to have you with us this morning, Lawrence.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. Now, so the traditional notion of retirement as this full stop is kind of fading. Why is that, and what is the trend exactly that you're seeing?
So I think it's really a function of this whole idea around retirement was created many, many years ago when people were essentially working for 20 years, retiring, and then having a very short life afterwards because life expectancies were much shorter. Now we're living much longer, and people are finding that when they do, or if they retire, that they're missing meaningful, joyful events in their life, and they want to do something more meaningful with that time. So it's no longer this hard stop that we've seen in years past.
So being that the lifestyle is changing, people are living longer, how can people plan for those later years if they, aren't the type of person who just wants to play golf and read, and they, want to continue to work?
I think that's the biggest challenge, and being that this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, I think it's really important to hit on that. A lot of advisors talk about the financial aspects of retirement, the numbers, etc. It's not just about the numbers, it's about what are they going to be able to do meaningfully with this time. So just like they would plan financially for that time, they have to start planning mentally and socially for that. So you have to get out of your shell in terms of going to work every day, just hanging out with the people at work, and try to build relationships outside of that environment and find those things that you find joy in, whether that's charitable endeavors, volunteering, maybe it's even a side hustle, right, that you thought about doing a long time ago but couldn't because of family circumstances, and now you have the time and the money to potentially go in that direction.
So it sounds like this work-life balance that people feel it so much more of a need for or draw towards even now before they retire is a gentle slope into a kind of work-life balance while you stay retired. What's behind that trend toward work-life balance?
I think COVID really, sprung people into this idea that, reevaluating things and understanding things a little bit more proactively. And they're understanding that it's not just about the work environment, it's about the life. And creating this work-life harmony is really important to them. And quite frankly, it's good for employers, right? In terms of if you are with an employer for a long period of time, instead of just pumping the brakes, stopping, if you can glide into that retirement with the employer's permission, you could then train the next generation and slowly, work on your outside activities, continue your employment, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Let's talk a little bit about readiness. I know you work with families on planning for the future. What should folks be thinking about both materially with their money and their assets, as well as mentally for sort of later stages of life?
So I think we start with the assets a lot of times, and it's really not about the assets. The assets are really a tool to generate whatever their goals are. So we really have to spend a lot of time on figuring out what their why is, what's really important to them, what are they looking to accomplish, are they really looking to retire, and how is that money going to serve them in the best way possible. And then designing the plan that's going to allow them to live that life. So I think from the financial standpoint, that's how you view it. And then mentally, you have to, just like you're starting to prepare financially 10, 15 years before you're planning for those financial aspects, you also have to plan for these mental aspects too. Am I somebody who's going to retire? I know me personally, I will probably work my entire life, not because I have to, because I enjoy it. I get a lot of joy out of going into work every day. I may not go at the same speed that I'm going at today, but with that being said, I know what I want and I know what my why is. So if people find that out and then start preparing for that mentally, it's going to be super helpful to create an environment that's really healthy for them financially and mentally as well.
Yeah, this all makes the huge decisions very personal. Everybody's got to make this kind of plan going forward, but it's not a universal thing. It's very, very individual. How can families really start to know what their why is in 10 or 15 years?
Yeah. So I think one of the things is you go online, there's a lot of general rules of thumb and things that you look at. And you would think that these things work universally for everybody. And there are people out there that come into us and say, well, how much money should I have for retirement? Well, we don't know what your spending habits are, right? We don't know how much you need to cover your expenses. So I think you really have to have an understanding of what your personal situation is. And if you're working with an advisor, they have to understand that too. And to your point, you may be planning very far out, right? 10, 15, 20 years. So the whole idea is to have a plan in place based upon today and then be flexible, because plans cannot be static. You can't create a plan today and stick with it for the next 15 to 20 years. I assure you, people's lives change. Their whys to some degree may shift based upon life circumstances. So whether you're doing it on your own or working with an advisor, you have to have a level of flexibility and go in and redo and readdress the plan as time goes on.
And I think the last time you were in here was during the very tumultuous market days, and now that seems to have shaken out a little bit. I'd love to hear some anecdotes of some of your clients maybe who are doing some of these non-traditional, I guess you wouldn't call it a retirement, maybe a retirement light, where they've taken on a new passion which has some entrepreneurial elements, or maybe they take a reduced amount of work, or maybe they're doing a succession plan for their business. But just some of these alternative retirement stories might be inspiring to hear.
Yeah, I don't know that they're alternative anymore. I think they're almost like they're the normal.
Okay.
And the people who are dead stopping are more uncommon than common at this point. But just to share, we have people everywhere from they put on the hard stop. 6 months later, they're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with all this free time. I have to do something. And they go do something that not even necessarily is that much income, but it's just something to take up their time and flex their brain. To other people that have started to go down paths to try different things that they've never tried before, whether it was some kind of entrepreneurial venture, some kind of hobby, or something that they've always wanted to do but never had the time or the resources to do, and they're moving in that direction. And the thing is, those people we find that are going in these directions and not fully stopping, they're so much more meaningful, and they really have a better understanding of what they like, what they don't like, and you can tell they're enjoying what they're doing each and every day. Where some of those people that are hard stopping, it's a little bit more of a challenge on a day-to-day because it gets a little monotonous.
No clutch before they shift. No. And Larry, in our last 20 seconds, maybe you could just offer some advice to people who maybe this is a different approach in their plan and how they can make that transition.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing is you have to know yourself, right? You have to really sit down and put pen to paper, jot some notes down, use your iPad if you don't want to use the pen to paper, and really write, hey, what do I want my life to look like over the next 5, 10, 15 years? And it doesn't have to be that detailed. We see people sit down and they get overwhelmed because they're like, I don't know. Well, just think about it for a few minutes. Think about it. Go do it over a week and come back to it. But get that game plan out and then start figuring out, well, how can I actually implement that? And once you do that, then start seeing if you have the financial resources to support that, and then start working towards it, because chances are if it's in here and you're thinking about that being your future and you don't do it, there's going to be a level of disappointment. And why do that to yourself?
Larry Sprung, Midland Financial, always very reassuring to have you in with your advice.
Thank you so much.